Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the Art of Compassing. Today we're at part 5, and we're going to take a look at the external expressions of what the adaptation of disconnection leads to in the long term. So, let's get to it. So, as a quick review, in the last episode we learned that our bodies are constantly adapting to situations when there's too much or too little of something. The adaptation the body engages when too much cortisol starts debilitating us is called disconnection. And the adaptation the body engages when too little dopamine starts debilitating us is called self-medication. Now, these adaptations aren't bad. They're a good thing. They're kind of like our friends because they help try and prevent bodily harm. And that is a good thing from a short-term perspective. So adaptations are basically a good thing. But, and it truly is a big but, you remember from that 2012 Harvard Journal of Pediatrics quote, though these adaptations help in the short term to survive immediate threats, these adaptations often come at a significant cost to long-term outcomes in learning behavior, mental health, physical health, and longevity. Let me tell you now exactly why that is and introduce you to what I call external expressions. But because there are a ton of those external expressions, we're going to need more room and a bigger wall. Fast forward, set, change, go!
Marek.
All right, we're done. We've enlarged our stage, and now we can continue. You see, we needed the extra room not only for the external expressions we will add, but also for the big head you see behind me. This head is here to point out the fact that all the processes we have learned about so far happen within our brains, within our heads, unseen to the eye. These parts of the pulley system that we have added so far are within the area of the head. They are happening inside us without our conscious knowledge. The last two pieces that we will add to the pulley system will be placed outside the area of the big head, signifying that they are the external expressions and results of the unbalanced internal chemical states and their adaptations. Now, unlike the internal processes we never actually see and are basically not aware of, I guarantee you have seen and are more than fully aware of the external expressions I'm about to share with you. Again, as always, let's start on this side of the pulley system. All right, let's take it from the top. Compassion creates connection. Connection directly affects cortisol levels. Cortisol directly affects the strength of our organism and immunity, and this directly affects whether or not the body has to engage the adaptation of disconnection. Now, the external expressions, or that which is directly affected by the cascade of these events, can be summarized as our sensitivity, our intelligence, and our ability to react adequately. Now, I will place this on the pulley system, but this time outside the area of the head. And now watch this. As this cascade of events starts to go and the adaptation has to kick in, our sensitivity lowers, our intelligence lowers, and our ability to react adequately also lowers. So, what do these external expressions look like? Well, I'll start with the biggest one, and that is lowered intelligence, or how we would generally put it, being dumb. We've all experienced that we were unable to learn, unable to remember, or even unable to recall important information when stressed out. Well, that's because not only was the stress limiting our neocortex in those moments due to the cortisol, but also the adaptation of disconnection was most likely even further limiting our higher brain functions. And that is why we lack intelligence in stressful moments. Now, I'd like for you to imagine for a moment a person who grew up in a disconnected home environment. Perhaps there was a lot of stress, maybe even abuse. And this child was constantly experiencing stress and high cortisol levels, meaning constantly having his conscious awareness of his or her surroundings disconnected to some degree by the adaptation. Imagine what this child's results would look like in school. And if the adaptation of disconnection has been engaged repeatedly for the first 5, 10, 15 years of that person's life, you not only end up with a person whose brain wasn't physiologically in the mode needed for it to process new information and learn stuff, thus limiting his or her intelligence, but also thanks to the fact that the person wasn't repeatedly activating his higher brain function for learning, the person most likely developed weak neural circuits for learning and rational thinking in general. So, in the external expression in our daily lives, we meet people who we consider and call dumb, who also have the parts of the brain needed to undumb themselves underdeveloped. In other words, the base lack of intelligence actually makes building up any intelligence that much harder, even when presented the best information. Now, I would like to call upon the power of etymology and take a look at the word intelligence. Intelligence comes from Latin, and the first half of the word is intel, as in intellect, which is the function of the left brain hemisphere. Logical, organized, analytical processes. The second half of the word intelligence, gense, to generate, as in the generative function of the right brain hemisphere. Creative, caring, and intuitive processes. True intelligence is when both hemispheres of our brain are active and work together, and there is no left or right brain hemisphere disbalance. You know, sometimes we might be high in intellect, but if we don't have a certain amount of caring, creative skills, we cannot bring something truly useful to the world, and we are not truly intelligent. In the same way, we can be the most creative and loving person, but if we do not have a certain amount of discipline and logical skills, we cannot bring something truly useful to the world. And it cannot be said that we have true intelligence. One final note about intelligence before we move on. One way that we can think of what it's like living life with lowered intelligence, that means living life with left or right brain hemisphere disbalance, is that it's like trying to win a dance competition after your left or right leg was bitten off by a bear. Nom nom nom. It becomes really hard to remain elegant, graceful, and not fall on your face. Just like so many of us have a really hard time living our lives without falling on our face due to our brain hemispheres having not developed in relative balance and thus having lowered intelligence. Now, besides lowered intelligence, we have lowered sensitivity. As we learned, the adaptation of disconnection protects us by shutting off our mental conscious awareness of what is stressing us. It also protects us by turning down and pulling in our body's other senses as well. Now, I'm not only talking about the standard senses of sight, sound, touch, but I'm also talking about that intuitive, gut feeling body sense, you could call it. If we have grown up with the sensitivity of our intuitive gut feeling body sense turned way down and pulled in, that means our brains have not developed the ability to fully feel and process the signals sent to us by this body sense. Not only might we not realize we are in the presence of danger, we equally might not realize we are in the presence of true safety and care. Now, most of us know dogs, horses, and animals in general can sense these sorts of things and have what could be called a sixth sense. But us humans, we are physically not much different, and we can sense the same things. The only difference between us and animals is that almost all of us have grown up in conditions which forced our body's survival instinct to turn this ability way down. On a physiological level, we literally did not develop strong enough wiring required to pick up on energetical and emotional signals. It's like if instead of having a big satellite dish in our brain, we only had a crooked little antenna. The hardware for processing the signals is literally not there. It is no wonder then that we are unable to adequately react to nonverbal signals and energy of people and situations around us. We are insensitive to our partner's feelings. We are insensitive to the animals we raise in horrific conditions for their meat. We are insensitive to the environment. And we are insensitive to our own true needs. Moving on, high cortisol levels, disconnection, and lowered sensitivity often lowers our ability to react adequately to situations. Some of us sometimes overreact in a way obviously not fitting some relatively small situation. Same thing goes for underreacting. If we have been disconnected from our sensitivity, we may find ourselves underreacting to serious and dangerous situations. We may be experiencing physical or verbal abuse by another person, not realizing we are being abused, not even aware of that other person's instability, not realizing we're in danger, not getting ourselves out of harm's way in time, and not voicing a clear no until it's too late. And that is what I mean when I say that our ability to react adequately is lowered. The next external expression on the list we've already talked about a little in episode 4, and it can look like a lack of willingness or laziness to learn something new or hear a different opinion. Well, it's not so much lack of willingness or laziness as much as it is simply the body's physiological need to protect itself from cortisol levels caused by the discomfort that comes with new or different information. Here is an analogy on how to view such behavior. So, if nobody ever taught us or compassed with us enough to where we would learn how to consider new information without it stressing us out, it could be likened to never being taught how to ride a bike without falling on our face. If a person repeatedly suffered physical trauma from falling off a bike, it is natural that whenever somebody would suggest to go on a bike ride, the person's reaction would be like, "Nope, I don't want to go." Just as people react with, "Nope, I don't want to know," when presented with information that could potentially cause physical trauma to them through heightened cortisol levels. Stupid. For the next external expression, I will ask you a question. What do you think happens when the brain has been stimulated to repeatedly disconnect itself during those formative years of brain development? Remember, what is repeatedly stimulated creates strong neural connections. The repeated action of the brain turning itself off through the adaptation of disconnection leads to the neural circuits involved with activating disconnection to develop a strong neural circuit, and becomes an easily accessible kind of skill or habit. Now, this easily accessible skill or habit shows up later in life as an inability to pay attention, and is often diagnosed as what? Attention Deficit Disorder, ADD. For more information about this, I highly recommend Dr. Gabor Maté's book, Scattered. And finally, last but certainly not least, I will add the external expression, use of chemical suppressants. As a symbol, I will use the most widely used chemical suppressant, alcohol. The use of alcohol and other chemical suppressants are a version of the adaptation of disconnection. They almost immediately suppress our sensitivity and awareness, which, for a short period of time, helps lower and suppress the physical pain being caused to our bodies by heightened levels of cortisol. So, with that, let's go finish up today's video. Dude, what are you doing here? I thought we got rid of you. Oh, good point. So, just because the adaptation has been activated doesn't mean that we don't have to worry about cortisol levels at all. Though the adaptation does help to lower the cortisol levels, it's not like it's been completely turned off. The cortisol is still there, lowering the strength of your organism and immunity. Not so much as before, but still, it's there, lowering the strength of our immunity and our organism. So, I will add to this side of external expressions, illness. This not only means simply getting sick more often because our body can't fight off bacteria and viruses as well, but it also means chronic illnesses such as inflammations, skin problems, autoimmune disease, high blood pressure, weight gain, etc., etc. So, now, can we go finish up today's video? All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. We learned how this cascade of internal processes ends up expressing itself externally. We recognize these external expressions and are something we have experienced in others and ourselves. Except we usually have a different label for them. We call them bad or unwanted behavior. We call people dumb. We label people alcoholics. We think, why is that woman always screaming? Is she crazy? And why is that man so insensitive? Is he a moron? And why are there so many fools who are unwilling to listen to a different point of view? But I hope you are starting to see the answer to all these whys, and that there really is no mystery, that there is a simple, logical, and biological reason for all these types of behaviors. The next time we see each other, we will learn about the external expressions on the side of lower dopamine, and we will add the final piece to our amazing pulley system. Till then, take care, my friends. Love ya. Bye.